Okay, so this is the evaluation for the Accessible University homepage. And before I start looking at digging into any of the content or the source code, I just want to make some observations of some things that I see here. The first piece that I see, there are a number of images, so I know I'm going to have to take a look at images and make sure that everything has alternate text. I also notice that there is a tab navigation up here at the top that when I mouse over it, I'm going to have to see if I can actually get into that with a keyboard. And that the color contrast looks a little bit low, so I'm going to have to definitely take a look at the color contrast. If I go down a little further here, I can see that there is this slideshow here. I'm going to have to take a look at the slideshow to make sure that everything with it is going okay. Then I can see that this page actually contains multiple languages, so I'm going to have to check to make sure the languages are properly identified on them. Keep going down, I can see a table. It's actually a fairly complex table, so I'm going to have to check on that. And the last piece here I see is a form with a CAPTCHA. So I'm going to have to check on the form to make sure everything is labeled properly. So that is my brief overview of the things that I think I'm going to need to take a look at. But let's go ahead and start using maybe a few tools here. So I'm going to click on this here and I'm going to copy the URL. And let's see, I'm going to go to Wave. Here I am going to Wave, and I'm going to start off with the automated tools because I want to find all the low-hanging fruit, the really easy stuff, just to get it out of the way. That way I don't have to spend as much time looking at the more difficult things. So then I just paste in my link here, and I hit Next, and I wait. So now Wave has given me a report which has 21 errors, 7 alerts, 1 feature, 8 structural elements, no HTML5 or ARIA, and 4 contrast errors. So let's just go ahead and start with the errors here. I can see that I was right to be concerned about all the images. There are actually 7 images on the page that are actually missing alternate text, including this one here at the very top that says Accessible University. And I was also right to be concerned about the form because if I go down here, all these form fields are missing labels that identify them to the user. Because I saw the Spanish in there, I was concerned about the language being in there, and apparently the checker found that the document language was actually not set. Check on that. Now here we have some suspicious alternate text, and when I go to look at it, I can see that it looks like it's supposed to be a horizontal rule that's kind of purplish, but it actually says horizontal rule graphic. This is a decorative element and actually does not need a alternate text, so therefore it should actually be empty, which makes this alert actually a failure. Right here it says no heading structure. This applies to the entire page, which is why it's up here at the top. So apparently there are no headings anywhere on the page, which is bad. And then you have suspicious link text. They're using the words click here for their links. That's bad. What does click here mean? It means nothing to somebody who may be using a screen reader. The one feature here is there is actually one image with an alternate text, and that just happens to be the Creative Commons license at the very bottom. There is a layout table. It is actually determined that this here in the AU enrollment trends is a layout table. and that somewhere in here it determined there is an ordered list and multiple unordered lists. Oh yes, here they are. That's the navigation. Okay, so there are definitely some issues that it found. The next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to go to the WCAG here, and I'm going to go to the BC 2.0, and I want to bring up my intro so that I can go down here and take a look at my criteria, how to meet. I want to bring this up, and I want to bring up WebAIM at the same time, because I'm going to put these side by side. I'm going to go to the articles and scroll down to testing and evaluation. And here is the WCAG 2.0 checklist. Okay. So, success criteria. The automated form did find images and that had missing or inappropriate alternate text. So therefore, non-text content is a failure for level A. It also found that images that were decorative contained non-empty alt. That's again also a failure. The equivalent alternate text, yeah. Form buttons have descriptive value. Form inputs had associated text labels. They were completely missing that. And multimedia is identified via accessible text. Well, I haven't actually really looked too much. Here's a slider. I mean, it does have some text here, but still I have concerns. Guideline 2, time-based media. There is no audio or video on this screen that I can see. Therefore, that is not applicable for all of these. This whole section pretty much is not applicable. Had this had a video, it would have been applicable. Okay, 1.3, adaptable here. So semantic markup is used. I haven't actually tried running this through a checker before. So now I'm going to go to yet another page here. And I am going to go here to the W3 validator. And I am going to validate by URI. And I'm finding some errors here. These are all things that were caught by other things. So here's the language and the missing alt tags. So this is actually, in this case, kind of useless, which is good and bad because it didn't find any errors. You know, there were titles or misaligned HTML tags, but it also didn't tell me anything about the headings, if there are any headings on it, or what the tables look like. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. So to do that, I'm going to right click on the browser and I'm going to go to View Page Source. And this is going to give me the raw HTML. Okay. So now I can start scrolling through, and if you ever wanted to find something on here, like you want to know if there's an H1 or an H2, you can just hit Find. And I can see there are, now all I did was open a bracket and just type H1. Nothing was found, okay? H2, nothing was found. H3. So it's correct, there are no headers on here. That would be an issue. Because now, how does a person with a disability identify what's the important content? They can't. Okay, so going back in it, looking at this a little bit more here, I'm kind of interested in seeing how these look. So I can see here's the menu code. Looks pretty clean. The code is good. It's just a regular list menu. That's got other ones here. Here's the next big section here. This is the carousel right here at the very top. And I can see that they have a link here and some slides and whatnot. So, okay. And here's what they consider a heading. This div with a class of heading. That's really not actually a heading. So let's go back to my WebAIM here. So it's failed the semantic markup. It does not have any headings. In terms of other things like doesn't have strong, doesn't have M, doesn't have italic. But it does have B. It's using the old B for bold tag. Now, while there is debate in the community whether you should be using the B or the strong, I do have a preference towards strong. Because the intention of it is to allow a screen reader to put different emphases on strong and M's. So I now know that they are using bold. Okay, let's go back here to the guidelines. And so text labels. Let's go down and find the source code for the form. Well, let's show you what a form looks like. Okay, so here's my form tag. So this is what a form looks like. Except this is a completely inaccessible form. You can see right here on the very first one, input type equals text, name equals name. That's the actual field for your name. Same thing here for your email. But you can see here, there's no label. There's no label here. The label is an actual tag that says label in it. So yes, there are no labels in here. So a meaningful sequence determined by the code order is logical and intuitive. Let's take a look at that. So now if I'm going to go in here and I bring up my toolbar, oops. Let's see. Options. Nope. Well, this one's not behaving itself today. Let's see here. Developer tools. I guess I didn't install it, so let's just go ahead and install it. Web developer toolbar. I'm looking for Chris Pedrix. Download for Chrome. It's added to control. Enable it. There we go. Okay. So now I got my toolbar. Okay, so now I'm going to go in here to determine the reading order. I'm just going to disable all styles and see if it makes any kind of sense. So now I can see at the top, I have my university, and I have what's interesting is I have this here, which when I mouse over it, it kind of changes. That's concerning. I can see here's my slideshow, my arrows for the slideshow. You can see how it says welcome and it's just plain text. Here's the Spanish text. And you can see it. The reading order is actually not bad. I would say the reading order is fairly logical. Okay. So coming back here. So sensory characteristics. Instructions do not rely on shape, color, visual location, like click here on the square icon, or instructions are in the right-hand column. Well, let's see here. Let's go ahead and put this back. All right. Well, there are these arrows here, and somewhere in here there's a click here. Click here is a problem. It's not descriptive enough. These arrows are kind of a problem here, potentially. Instructions do not rely on sound. Beeping indicates you can continue. No, well, there's no sound, so that's a pass. So now, guidelines, distinguishable. Use of color is not used as the sole method of conveying information, or color alone is used to distinguish links from surrounding text. Well, let's take a look at some of these different colors. These colors are pretty faint. If I were to run this in Firefox, I can pretty much guarantee that it's going to fail the color checker. So, since I've already run it on a different computer here. Audio controls, that's a pass. There's no audio on here. Contrast minimum, so that there's not enough contrast on that navigation. Resize. Here's how you resize in your browser. Does everybody know how to resize? Okay. Here's how you do it in Chrome. It's very similar in other browsers. You go up to the little 3 dots. That is your menu. Down in the menu, you keep going until you find zoom. And you zoom. Just like so. So now let's go back to my page. And let's zoom. So it says I need to go up to 200%. Okay. Well, it's a little difficult to read, especially since this purple now here on this right-hand side now bleeds over. I definitely having a hard time reading the black text on top of this purple. I'd say it didn't zoom to 200 very well at all. So let's see here. Function is when text size is doubled. I mean, it's readable and functional. Is it a great functionality? Probably not. I would want to work on it. If the same visual for images of text is image used to present format. Well, the only thing that we have, let me zoom back out. Okay, this is text overlaid on top of images. Actually kind of hard to read. But it is the logo, so it would get a bit of a pass. You just have to make sure you have appropriate alternate text. Are there other areas where text is used? On this particular page, yes. Right here, the CAPTCHA. Even I can't read this gobbledygook here on the right-hand side of the CAPTCHA. I can read the minus 72.9 degrees, but I have no idea what, looks like it's an OPLETT maybe. I don't know. Yeah. So no. That is using text image alone, therefore that would be a failure point. Contrast, you'd have to run one of the contrast tools on there. However, let's see here, do I still have it up? Here we go, wave report. Remember, this has contrast in it. Back up here, contrast. So yes, I was right. Very low contrast in this navigation area. Okay. In fact, so low that it has a contrast ratio of 2.53 to 1. That's well below the 4.5. Okay. Audio of speech has no or low background. Well, there's no audio, so that, and then besides, that's a AAA anyway. Next one, visual presentation, that's a AAA also, and images of text, AAA. So operable. This is where we really have some fun. This is where you take your hands off the mouse and you put them on the keyboards. Now, I'm going to scroll back up to the top so I can start. So now I'm going to start tabbing through. Now, I'm not exactly sure where I am. Oh, there I am. Okay, how the heck did I get back down there? So to tab forward, it's just the tab key. Now, if you wanted to go backwards, you hold down the shift key and then hit tab. Shift tab will allow you to go backwards. So, gone too far again. I'm trying to get access to this slideshow here, but I can't seem to get in there, nor can I seem to get these navigation here that if I mouse over, well, that would be a failure. I can't access all the content on the page using a keyboard alone. I could not access the slideshow and I could not access the navigation. Now, keyboard trap. I was able to navigate around. My keyboard never really got trapped at any one point, but there is such a thing as a keyboard trap where you just simply cannot get out of it. Have you ever had like a social security input field or a telephone number input field where you have the 3 fields, and if you don't enter all of them, you get sent back to the beginning? That's a keyboard trap. But yeah, guideline here for operatable, it failed the keyboard. Okay, so the next one is enough time. This does not actually have any timings on it, therefore it is not applicable. Seizures, flashing more than 3 times a second. Well, there are actually, even if I go through it, there are nothing's flashing on the page. So again, that particular test, not applicable. Navigation. Are there ways for me to bypass blocks? No. There was no skip navigation. There were no headers. There was really no way for me to I had to go through the page exactly in the order it was in. Does the page have a title? No, it does not. Is the focus order logical? Well, for the elements that I was able to get to, yes. It did go through a logical order. However, I was not able to access all the elements. So I cannot say for certain once I am able to access them if I would be able to. Let's see, link purpose. Again, failure. Remember all those click here's? What's click here 1, click here 2, and click here 3 actually mean? They could be all going to different web pages and I wouldn't know because it says click here. Are there multiple ways to find other web pages on the site? At least 2. So this is referring to things like this top navigation here, and that if you had, say, something in a footer navigation. The only way I can really find anything is by using this top navigation, which is inaccessible to me as a keyboard user. So are there multiple ways for you to find information? No. Okay. Page headings or labels, well, we've already determined those are missing, so that's a failure. Visually apparent, which page element has the current page focus. I actually got lost. Did you notice that? I went from thinking I was at the top to like all of a sudden I was down in the form. So no, I lost my focus where I thought I was. The next 3, location, purpose, and section headings, are actually AAAs, so I am going to go ahead and skip those. And we are now in the understandable section. And this is where the language of the page is identified. Now, to find that, you simply go up here to the document type, and right here in the header on line 2 should be a lang equals and then the language that it is. In this case, it should be English, which is EN. It's missing. So the language of the page is not defined, which is very important because, if you recall, here is Spanish. When you have a page that has mixed languages, the primary language needs to be defined up in the header, up in the HTML tag, and everywhere else that the additional languages are used should be defined on the individual tag itself. So this should have a lang equals ES for Espanol. Okay, so unusual words, abbreviations, reading level, pronunciation. Now, this is where I do actually say a couple of the AAA ones are actually kind of good to use, especially if you have an acronym-rich page, which is quite frequent in education. Therefore, I would want to make sure that everything has abbreviations. Now, if we go look at the page, I'm not sure if there were any. Yes, a group of AU students is Accessible University, AU. So the first time I see here where I'm defining the acronym is actually after it's used for the first time. So how do I know what the acronym is until I get to this point? That could be, you could fail it on that if you wanted to. Reading level, well, this is one where it's really dependent upon the page content and your target audience. If it's your target audience is somebody with just 9 years of primary education, it's probably pretty simplistic information. But if it's anything like any of the journals that we're reading, that's a much more that's a higher level reading comprehension. So yeah, I'm just going to skip the rest and go down here to predictable. So when a page element receives focus, it does not result in a change of the page, like spawning of a pop-up window or with an additional keyboard focus here. Now I can tell you from playing with this page, I know there is a pop-up somewhere on here. Let's see if I remember where it was. Okay. Nope, it's not there. There is a pop-up, and yeah, it does get spawned, but interesting. Notice how I submitted the form, and it says your form has errors. Please correct them and resubmit. Well, what are the errors? Is it understandable to a person who may be using a screen reader what the errors are? No. This message is not understandable. Therefore, I would fail in an understanding area here. Let's see. Which could be different things like, let's see, form validation, which is actually a little further down here. So on input, are there any pop-ups? Well, there is, but I couldn't figure out how to actually trigger it. Consistent navigation. Links are repeated on the website, do not change order when navigating through the site. For the most part, they don't. Consistent identification. Well, this is only one page that I'm doing, so I would have to look at other pages in order to pass that. And then change on request is a AAA. So now let's go down to this error identification. This is what failed when I submitted this form. Required form elements or form elements that require a specific format value. It has to provide it within the elements label. So because there's no label, there's no way for you to say what you're expecting. So like Email label would be actually pretty obvious. You're expecting an email. But had there been a phone number field on here, well, what format? Are you going with the American format? Are you going with British? Are you going with Australia, New Zealand, Russia? There's all kinds of formats out there. So I'd say there's really nothing here also telling me that, which fields are clearly identified. The errors are not even presented in an efficient, intuitive, accessible manner. I have no idea which fields I missed. Again, sufficient labels and cues on interactive elements like forms. There weren't anything. No. So this is actually talking about, like right here, desired majors. This should actually be grouped together in what's known as a field set. That will basically group all these majors together in one, defining them as a field set. In this case, there isn't one, so the check boxes there alone are kind of difficult. So I have no idea, are these a bunch of individual fields or are they all together? Error suggestion, there is no error suggestion. I mean, even an asterisk with a little note saying would be better. But here it says required fields are in blue. So you're requiring that I have to see color in order to know which ones are required. Well, the contrast is insufficient that even on my screen here, getting real close, I'm having a hard time telling which ones are required. Let alone, I mean, just an asterisk here saying required fields are starred would be better than this. Error prevention, financial, legal data. Well, we don't have any financial, legal, or test data in here, so that's not a big deal. And help and error prevention are actually AAA level. So robustness, the last piece. This is where this W3 validation came into play. A valid website that completely passes would have a congratulations, you are valid. However, this does not pass. Therefore, because of things like the image tag, which doesn't even have an alternate tag at all. So is this robust? No. It does not meet robustness because there are parsing errors on the validator. And it also is not robust because you're not using form fields, labels, titles appropriately to help facilitate accessibility. So that is how, in just a little bit of time here, I went through the standards, at least on the WebAIM site, to help identify accessibility issues. Now, if I wanted to do it here, you can see on this screen, there's a lot more detail that I would have to go into. And I'd have to have a much greater understanding of the HTML and what it is I'm trying to achieve here. And especially for all these different situations here. Are you using alt attributes for images on a submit button? Do you have equivalent text that's Silverlight? Is there any flash in there? So that was the high level. This is the kind of accessibility check I expect you to at least attempt here for the 5 pages. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and is 5 website pages. I'm going to go ahead and stop broadcasting.